Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia, I'm coming to you from the UK, and today is Thursday, the 22nd of September 2022. Yes, I totally had to think about that one. I am so lost in time and space, especially since we just came back from a trip to France last Friday. And then we had the public holiday on behalf of the Queen on Monday, so this whole week feels like a complete mess. Anyhow, it is Thursday, and I very spontaneously decided to record a podcast today. If you've watched before, you may notice I am recording from a different location. I am recording in my bedroom because I really like the lighting in here, and I always feel like recording my craft room, you have all the yarn in the background, but also it looks a bit chaotic and a bit busy, and also I have rearranged some furniture in my craft room, so I just don't have anywhere comfortable to sit. It just all doesn't work out. So I've decided to try this, record in my bedroom, which my husband actually just painted a few weeks ago, so it feels nice and shiny and new, and we'll see how it goes. I am currently both waiting for the postman to collect some parcels because I have been destashing yarn. I hope you're proud of me. And also my son's about to wake up from his nap, but his dad should be able to take care of that. So we'll just play it by ear. But maybe to start from the beginning, if you haven't watched before, which I wouldn't blame you because I have been more than irregular. Like I said, my name is Julia. I live in the UK and have been living here for the past almost 2 years now with my husband and my son, who just turned 2. I mainly knit. I also like to crochet, even though I can't read crochet patterns. I can do like basic blankets and stuff, but nothing beyond that. I love to spin, but I usually don't have the time for it. And I don't enjoy sewing, so I've given back the sewing machine that I used to have a while ago from my aunt. And yeah, mostly I just knit because I just enjoy it the most, and I love playing with color and fiber, and I love all the woolly wools and all of that. I also have a cold, sorry about that. I hope you can't hear it too much, but it is what it is, and it being September and all the kids going to all the groups and sharing all the germs, I think we're just going to have a cold for the next 6 months or so, so I'm going to record anyways, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Alright, should we get into some knitting? I have 3 finished objects to show you, which is not necessarily all the things that I've finished since I last recorded. You know, I don't even remember what I showed you last time, but it's just what I found, what I had handy, so I thought I would show them to you. And the first one is what I'm wearing today, which is my Gracious Sweater, which is a free pattern. Is it by Espace Tricot? I think it's by Espace Tricot or Pearl Soho. But it is a free pattern on Ravelry and their webpage called Gracious Sweater. And essentially I just chose it based on the gauge that I had with this yarn, and I really knew I just wanted to make like a very plain, simple, classic sweater top down, and I just put the gauge and things into Ravelry and chose this pattern based on that. The yarn that I used for this is Woolly Knit in their merino yarn. So I've recently knit a couple of things in their British breeds, or is it just British wool? I think it's called British wool. And this is the first time I've knit with their merino, which I really like. I thought I wouldn't like the merino because it would be too... I know it's not super wash, but I don't know. Merino has this feel that sometimes I don't like, especially on garments. I want them to be nice and woolly. But this still feels woolly. I really like it. It was a joy to knit with. I could see myself getting more of that once I eventually start buying yarn again. This is the Rioja colorway, which I was stalking for a while before I finally got it. So it seems to be quite a popular one. And yes, the sweater has stains on it because I have been wearing it with a toddler, so that's just what happens. Anyways, I really like it. It's just a nice sort of layering piece to throw on and be done. I feel like with a lot of really woolly sort of non-superwash wools, they get shorter over time, so the more I wear it, the shorter my sleeves get. So maybe I'll rip them out and make them longer, or maybe I'll just reblock it. And because they used to be nice and long, and I think just because I always push them up anyways, they sort of get shorter and the wool changes and it all becomes a bit of a mess. But yeah, I really, really like this. if you want a non-superwash yarn and you don't want the sort of quote-unquote scratchiness, I think this is a good sort of yarn if you're not used to the real woolly wools, because it is really quite soft. It does also pill because it is merino, but it still feels sort of woolly, and you get all the advantages from, you know, a non-superwash wool, I think. Yeah, so that is my sweater. I also literally about an hour ago finished these socks. These are socks for my husband. I knit them quite long because, as per usual, I was intending to knit these for him. He saw the colors and wasn't sure about them and didn't care about them, so I then thought I would knit these for my father-in-law for Christmas, which is why I made them a bit longer. But then my husband decided he wants them after all, so now he's getting a long pair of socks, longer than he would usually like them. And yeah, I really like these. I made them purposely not match, which turned out to be a good idea in the end, because one of the skeins had a knot in it, and they did what I hate, which is they just knotted completely different sections of the yarn together. So it would have been impossible to match these anyways, so I'm glad I made mismatched socks to start with. And this yarn I'm really quite impressed with. By the way, none of the yarns I'm showing you, nothing here is sponsored. This is just yarn that I bought with my money. But I bought this ages ago. This is a sort of, I would say, cheaper sock yarn in Germany. The label looks quite old. This is Comfort Sockenwolle. 75% wool, 25% polyamide, in the colorway 121702. I bought this ages ago. Again, I think this is one of the really, really affordable ones, like more affordable than Regia and Opal and all of that. And I was really impressed with it. I really like the space. I wonder if all of their balls are like this, or you know how sometimes those commercial sock balls, they can be different depending on which one you get. But this was really quite soft to knit with, for it being a commercial sock yarn. Yeah, I really like it. It's not too thin, it's not too thick, and I really enjoyed the colors as well. I think that's the only ball of this I have in my stash. So when I do go back to Germany over Christmas, most likely, I might have to look for some more, because I think this would be a great yarn for gift socks, because you can just wash them. They come in fun colors, but again, I like Opal and stuff, but sometimes it can be a bit too stiff for me, and this is just a little bit nicer. So yeah, good surprise with this yarn. And the last finished object I have to show you today, and I'm sorry that my voice is already going, is I finished my half and half wrap number 2. So if you haven't heard of the half and half triangle wrap story, everyone seems to be talking about it. It is basically a massive rectangular square wrap that is came out by Pearl Soho. Again, it's a free pattern, and essentially you just knit a triangle with short rows with one color, and then through the magic of short rows you then knit a second triangle, and you end up with a massive square shawl, which I think what most people do is they fold it up, and then you can either wear it as like a big shawl with a blue side coming up. Should we do this? And then you have the other color just sort of peek through, or you can use it as a blanket, or you can just do whatever you want. It's massive. Like I said, this is the second one I've knitted. The first one I knit in a Filcolana sport weight yarn, which I knit the smaller size, but it turned out quite large because my gauge was bigger. And for this one, I think the smaller size is 170 stitches, the larger size is 260 stitches, and I did 240. And this is massive. This is bigger than the large size in the sample. And honestly, the difference between the 170 and 240 stitches was a big difference in terms of how long it felt like I had to knit this. But I absolutely love it. I've already been using my first one a lot. I wasn't sure if I was going to use it, but it's just really comfortable to have it like around your shoulders. and even as a blanket. And I think this one I'm going to use even more because it's just even more of a blanket. And this is also 100% wool yarn. It's one of those really thin yarns that bloom when you wash it. So I soaked it for a long time yesterday and then spun it in my washing machine and blocked it. And the yarn for this is 100% British wool by Uppingham Yarns. So it comes in this cone, and I bought a couple of cones from them a while ago. And the cool thing is that they have 250-gram cones. So I had two 250-gram cones, and as you can see, I used up most of it. And one cone was £12.50, so it's really pretty good value for money. I can't tell you the colorway name. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, it took ages to knit. It really did. And the yarn, it feels quite thin when you knit with it, but now that it's blocked, it's beautiful. It's really nice and woolly, and I really, really like it. I'm not sure if I can show you the halo, and there's a lot of different colors in the colors, so they're not flat or anything. So I'm really happy with it. I literally just got this off my carpet where I was blocking it. So this is going to go into rotation. I'm not necessarily sure how much I will wear this out, even though I think I might once it gets like really proper cold. But until then, I'll just use it as blanket or as a shawl at home, because our house is freezing because obviously we don't have the heating turned on. So it feels like our house is kind of the same temperature as it is outside. So yeah, that is my half and half triangle wrap done. And everyone is obsessed with these projects. They're just really, really fun to work on, like really sort of comforting. But because you're doing the short rows, it's just somehow it keeps you going. And I really enjoy choosing colors that go together, or even colors that clash sometimes I think look really nice with this project. So I'm definitely going to be knitting more. Originally I thought I was going to take a break after this one, just for a while. But then I saw that Pearl Soho just came out with a strappy version of this, and it looks really good. And also, because I'm trying to knit from stash, I could definitely stash dye for a strappy version. So I think it might only be a few more days, and then I'll have a look in my stash to see if I find colors that I enjoy. And I think this would be actually a really, really fun sort of scrappy looking project. So yeah, that is my half and half triangles wrap. So I just recorded a whole segment on all of my whips and plans and thoughts, and it turns out my phone actually stopped recording because my storage was full. So sorry for any sort of weird cuts, but we're just going to go through this again. So yeah, let's talk about some works in progress that I have going on. Let's do a really weird funky order and start with a crochet blanket. So about, I think it was in the middle of the heat wave that we had here in the UK, which seemed to go on forever, in the beginning of August, I think, I decided to start another blanket, which is ridiculous. But I had a lot of yarn, this yarn, which is Scrappy's Tribe, or Our Tribe. So it's a sock yarn by Scrappy's or Scrappy's. And I bought this originally a while ago to knit a Battenberg, or to crochet a Battenberg blanket. And I did start it, and I did start joining some squares, but I realized I really want to have that blanket, but I didn't want it out of that yarn. So I have since then started a different Battenberg blanket with a different yarn, and I'm loving it. But then I had all of this yarn lying around, so I think I have about 700 or 800 grams of this in different colorways. And this is essentially sort of color changing yarn. It is more or less color changing depending on the colorway. And what I've decided to do is to hold a double and make a crochet granny square. So I could just crochet round and round and round. And essentially the yarn would do the work for me in terms of color management. So all the balls of yarn that I have are either sort of blue tones or purple tones, or a bit on the teal and turquoise side as well. And I have just started a granny square, and every now and then I change a strand of yarn, and this is so fun. I've really been enjoying this. It may not be perfect, it may not be sort of the perfect color progression, but it is a stash project and I've really been trying to use up stash, and it's definitely scratching that itch and getting that yarn out of my stash. So I'm using either a 4.5 or a 5mm crochet hook. I can't tell you because apparently I've left it downstairs, but it's just a random crochet hook I had at home, and I'm just going round and round and making sure to turn my work every now and then, because if you don't turn your granny square, eventually it will get kind of skewed. So I've just used some random YouTube tutorial on how to crochet a granny square, and I'm just going round and round and round and round, and I'm going to keep going until I run out of yarn, and then I'll see if I want to just leave it like that, and who knows how big it'll be. Maybe it'll be more like a toddler size blanket, or maybe I want to order more of the yarn to finish it and make it bigger. But honestly, I just sort of want to get the stash out and not worry too much about creating more stash. Yeah, so there's that. I have also been working on a few other projects. This one is the Flores sweater. I don't remember the designer's name, but I should have mentioned this in the beginning. I will link my Ravelry down below the video. And I usually keep everything that I'm knitting on Ravelry, so you can look up all the details, all the designers and yarns and colorways there. If you can't use Ravelry, which is fine, do just leave me a comment and I will reply to you with whatever information you need. But yeah, sorry, I don't remember the designer, but this is the Flores sweater. And it is originally designed in a sort of batwing style, sort of oversized, but at the same time it's cropped and it's got quite a wide sort of waistline. So of course I had to modify the crap out of this, of course. So I substituted the 1x1 twisted rib with just a regular rib. I think I may have done a 2x1 rib looking at it. And I've also adjusted the increases, so the sleeve to body increase ratio a little bit to make it less batwingy. And I have a feeling this is not going to be as oversized either, because it is a rib texture. And I will block it out, but so far it's just a really nice, comfortable fit. So it has some positive ease, but not tons of it. And honestly, I think I only tried this on at this stage. So I tried it on quite late. I just kind of kept knitting, hoping it'll be fine. And it fits really beautifully. I really like it. So now that I have tried it on, I'm even more excited about the finished object. It does take a while to knit, I'll be honest, because it is basically a ribbed sweater. Or it's a broken rib sweater. And oh yeah, I should be alternating skeins because this is a hand-dyed yarn. But all I did is I used one skein to knit down to where I separated for the sleeves. And then I alternated for a while to fade in the second skein. So now I'm just using the second skein, and I have, however, kept a bit of the first skein, so then I can also fade in the sleeves. So hopefully I shouldn't have any sort of obvious lines, and if there's like slight changes throughout the sweater, honestly, I could not care less. So the yarn that I'm using is actually quite a special yarn to me, because this was a yarn that was on my wish list for a long time. This is Hedgehog Fibers Skinny Singles in the colorway Artifact, and it's just beautiful. And I bought this at the beginning of the very first lockdown, so 2020, when I was pregnant and everything was quite difficult, let's just say it that way. I decided to treat myself to 3 skeins of this yarn that I really wanted for a long time. I got it on the skinny singles base only because that's the only base I could get it on, other than possibly DK, but with DK you need more skeins and this is pricey, so I didn't. And then I never got around to knitting it up. I always wanted it to be a sweater, and then after a while I wasn't sure about the color anymore, but now that I'm knitting with it, I actually really like the color again. So it's finally being used and I'm really happy I didn't destash it or anything, and I think it's going to be a really nice sort of sweatshirty type sweater. Alright, another interruption. The post lady was here. My parcels have been collected, my yarn has been sent off, and I will tell you more about a different whip. So again, I think my whole sort of project at the moment are all about using stash. And one specific goal of mine is to use more handspun. Because I have all these skeins that I spun years and years and years ago, and I haven't really used that many of them. So the other day, I just caked up, I think 4 or 5 skeins of handspun, just so they would be ready to be knit with whenever I felt like casting on. And one of them is this one. This is a singles yarn. I can't tell you what it is, although I have a feeling it might have been Polworth. And I spun this from fiber from Sarah's Texture Crafts, who doesn't dye anything anymore, I think. I think she changed professions, which was really, really sad because I used to get a lot of fiber from her, again, many, many moons ago. So this must have been in stash at least 5 years, possibly more. And it's really beautiful. I love all these colors, but obviously I spun it as a singles yarn, so it's quite... Well, you can't use it for everything. It sort of felt like it needed a special project because it has a really nice sort of long color transition going on. And I initially cast on a one color or one skein shawl with this. It was a free pattern, but although it was beautiful, it just wasn't something I was going to wear. So I felt like I was going to knit something and then not use it. And also the pattern that I was using, I can't even remember the name, but it wasn't very well written and it just didn't work for me. So I decided to rip it back and cast on a project that I've incidentally knit with handspun before and that I really, really enjoyed. And that is the Botanic Shawl by Stephen West. So the Botanic Shawl, it looks like this, sort of. So it's a striped sort of slip stitch pattern, and if you use a single colored yarn, in my case I'm using some really old stash drops yarn. This is just some drops, is it Flora or the other one? They have 2 fingering weight non-superwash balls. It's just some charcoal grey, almost black yarn. And if you use that with a color changing yarn, it creates this beautiful effect. I think this looks really fancy, even though essentially I'm just using 2 skeins of yarn. And ever since I chose to do this version of, or this shawl, I'm really, really excited about it. I think I'm going to wear this loads, and yes, there are a lot of different colors in here, but I'm finding more and more that sometimes if you have lots of colors in a project, it actually matches with more, because there's always going to be one color that matches with whatever you're wearing. For example, I have a navy wool coat, and I think because there's like a slight bit of blue in here, I think it will actually look really beautiful. The modification I've made with this one is that in the original shawl, it is really deep because you increase quite quickly, so you get a sort of very deep shawl, which works if you make it really large. But if you don't make it massive, like a sort of schlanket, then I feel like it's just really kind of too short to wrap properly. So what I've decided to do, and I'm not the first one who's done that, I'm sure, is I'm only doing every second increase row. So I'm skipping every second increase to make a sort of more elongated triangle. So I'm not sure, this may be more like a scarf than a shawl, even though I have a lot of yarn left, so I could make this really, really long, and then obviously it would get wider as well. But yeah, I've modified the shape by doing a very simple modification, and I really like it. It is incredibly soft. I think it's just a combination of the singles yarn and the loose gauge that I'm using. I'm getting with a 3.5mm needle, because I am a loose knitter, I should say. It just really works for me, and I really love it. So yeah, I'm just going to keep going. I have so much of this yarn. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it all. I doubt it, because I'll be knitting this forever, and I don't want like a 3-meter long shawl either. But yeah, really, really excited about this. And then last but not least, yesterday I cast on another fun project. I was actually inspired by someone on Facebook. I saw someone in a knitting group post about a baby hat that they were knitting out of Knit Picks Felici. And I thought actually that's a genius idea, because I have a lot of Knit Picks Felici in my stash that I originally bought for socks, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make all those socks. And I also thought back when I bought it that it would be really fun to make baby sweaters out of it, but My baby is not such a baby anymore, and he's also really tall, so none of the quantities I have would be enough for a baby sweater or for a toddler sweater. And also, if you knit a sweater out of self-striping yarn, then based on the circumference, the stripes will change, so they will be really long on the sleeves and really short on the body. So I thought actually using it for hats would be a genius idea. It's washable, it's really soft. So I've decided to cast on a Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. So the Musselburgh hat is really genius because you can basically knit it with any yarn and needles, because you start from the top and then as you increase you measure your gauge, and she gives you the different numbers you need to then make a adult or child or toddler or baby sized hat. So it's my second time using this pattern, but I think what I might do is I might not do the full length, because the original pattern you basically need a tube, so then you fold it into itself and create a double fabric hat. What I might do, depending on how lazy I am, is I think I might just knit a normal hat and do a double brim. So that way I will use less yarn and my son will still have warm fabric around his ears, but I'm not sure if he needs like the double fabric on the top of his head. And then what I could do, because I have 2 balls of this, I mean, this is really tacky, but I sort of think he might need really long matching socks to go with his hat, just because it's really cute and because I feel like it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm using 2.25 millimeter sock needles. The colorway of this is Acrobat, so this is the tag. And again, I'm using stash, and I really at the moment I feel like I need to make my son a whole box of hats. I'm so ready for autumn, which I'll talk about in a second. I'm really excited about all the knits, and essentially he's going to be wearing hats for like the next 4 or 5 months. And how fun would it be? I mean, he has a couple of hats, but how fun would it be if he had like a box of like really fun colorful hats and he could like choose a different one each day. And obviously, you know, you need so little yarn to make a hat, so I could use up some stash. And yeah, I'm just really excited about hat knitting for my son at the moment. And we really need the wool as well, because it is freezing here and no one can afford heating. So I feel like all the knits are definitely justified at the moment. I mean, maybe this is why I've been collecting stash and knitting for all these years. This is what I've been preparing for. So yeah, there you go, Toddler Musselburgh hat, which I might modify to be a sort of double brim hat. And that, my friends, is what I've been knitting. The last thing that I wanted to show you in terms of knitting is a sweater that I haven't knit myself, but you may remember I knit myself the festive yoke sweater by Ellie of Scandia Knits. Hi Ellie. I knitted my version in Hobby Highland wool, which incidentally is the same as Filcolana Pernilla, both of which I really like, I should mention. And I made mine out of a red with a light gray contrast color. And already when I finished that, I knew my son would have to have a matching sweater. Like, that would just be the most cute and hilarious sort of Christmas sweater duo ever. And also I refused to buy my son, you know, those acrylic sweaters, like Christmas sweaters that they sell in stores around Christmas here in the UK. And luckily my friend Marion came to the rescue, because she's knitted I think 3 of those sweaters now and she wants to make more. I mean, she might even make me another one, because mine is a little bit too small, if we're being honest. Anyways, so she came to the rescue. I gave her my leftover yarns and she knitted a toddler sweater. Look at that. How cute is this? I'm so in love with this. So as you can see, she used my contrast color as the main color and my main color as the contrast color. And she sent me this a few weeks back and I'm so excited about this. This is already lying next to our door at home, ready to go. It's not been cold enough to wear this yet, but I'm just so excited about this. And I've asked her to make quite a large size so my son can wear it for a couple of years. So I think this may be the 4 or 5 year size. But my son is really tall, and also I love oversized sweaters on kids. I think it's really cute if they have an oversized sweater. So I've just sort of folded back the cuff a little bit, and so excited about this. Thank you, Marion. And I think it definitely deserves a spot in this podcast. So that's it in terms of actual knitting content. But I thought I might stick around and knit for a little bit and just chat with you guys about what's been happening, where I've been, because of course I disappeared again. I told you guys that I might actually have time to record more podcasts over the summer, and guess what? It just didn't happen, and now it's sort of back to normal, back to routine. My husband's starting a new job in 2 weeks, actually more like 1 week, and I'll have no time at all. So sorry about that. We've just been really busy, but we've had a lovely summer. Maybe excluding the insane summer weather, which is horrible, and climate change is horrible, and let's not even go there. But yeah, so I think I mentioned last podcast I just returned from a trip to Germany to see family mostly, and then we spent a lot of time this summer sort of doing stuff to our house. So it looks pretty much the same, except we've painted some rooms. But we've been doing a lot of like decluttering and just improving little things, and especially with our upstairs, our bedroom and stuff, we haven't really put much work into it because we moved in with a 7-week-old baby, and then we had a pandemic, and we were basically just sort of making it through. And the effort we put in more into my husband's office and my son's nursery and our living room. But yeah, so we finally tackled our bedroom, which was full of sort of leftover furniture that we got for free from our landlords. And yeah, I've sorted out some of my clothes. I've even sold some of my knitwear that just doesn't fit anymore because I've just changed over the years, which happens. So yeah, it's been a busy summer in a way, but it's been good to get stuff done. And also, basically since the beginning of August, I have been excited about autumn, because I think every knitter loves autumn, right? Like, we all love autumn, we all love everything that comes with it. It's basically our knitting season. And yeah, so I've spent the summer getting ready for autumn and like getting all the best sort of secondhand winter and autumn clothes and stuff, and planning little outfits. And yeah, I'm just so in the mood for autumn, and now it's here. It's freezing inside because no one can afford to heat their houses anymore. So I think everyone here in the UK is going to wait until like the very last second to turn on the heating. But to be fair, these past few days it's actually been really nice. So we came back from our trip to France, and we'd been home for like 3 seconds and we all caught a cold. But now, basically, my husband and I, we're completely fine, and my son is just getting it now, but he will be fine. Yeah, so I've just been really excited to take walks outside and collect conkers, and like I just love fall. I love autumn. It's just really my favorite time of the year, especially at the moment where it's really cold when you go out in the mornings, but then the sun comes out and it's actually really beautiful. Yeah, and like I said, we went to France. I'm sort of telling this story backwards, I'm sorry. Yeah, so we went to France. If you've been a really long time watcher, you'll know that both my husband and I, we love France, and we used to go there quite a lot before we had my son, and the pandemic and all of that. So we've both been polishing our French. We've been doing Duolingo, which is like a language learning app. And it was really useful. So we went to France, and I could actually, I learned French at school, but you forget. But I could actually speak French, and it was amazing. And we rented a little Airbnb that had like a lovely garden area. So we got to just chill, and my son was like basically living on the trampoline that they had. And then we rented a car, which was really exciting to my son, because we don't have a car here. We are basically car free. So having a rental car and getting to drive places for him was really exciting. So yeah, we just ate all the French food, and we were in like a beautiful area near Aix-en-Provence, which is near Marseille. And yeah, so that was lovely, and it was just good to get away from everything, get away from the news and everything. That's just like, I feel like it's been heavy in terms of the news, in terms of what's happening in Ukraine, and in terms of what's happening with the cost of living crisis here in the UK. It's just been really bleak. So it's been good to, yeah, just catch some sun rays. And yeah, I bought some yarn in France actually as well, which I might show you next time. I forgot to bring it upstairs. I did make an exception to my no buying yarn rule and went to a yarn store in Aix called Le Chat qui tricote, so the cat who knits. And it was so cute. It was really, really fun. And yeah, now it's basically, it feels like back to school, even though no one is going back to school. But yeah, going back to the routine, and my husband's going to be traveling quite a lot in October, so I'm a little bit nervous about that. But we will make it work, and until then, now we're just trying to do as many fun things as we can and make the most of next week. Might go into London on the weekend. Yeah, just basic life stuff. So I think I've rambled on for long enough. I'm sorry, this probably feels really disjointed, just because it is, because I have had to start and stop and deal with technical difficulties and post ladies and a toddler and all of that. But I hope you still enjoyed just chatting a little bit. I hope I didn't speed through this too much. And hopefully I will see you sometime soon. Let me know what you're knitting on, what you've been doing. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe and staying healthy. And yeah, I will talk to you at some point. You can always follow me over on Instagram as TheHappyKnittingPodcast for sort of random toddler knitting live content with no structure whatsoever. But you're very welcome to join me there, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Happy knitting. Bye.